I'm sure you've heard me talk about 26shirts.com before, but just in case you haven't, let me fill you in. At 26 Shirts, they sell different limited edition sports-themed t-shirts every 2 weeks. After a shirt's prospective 2-week run is over, the design is retired and never sold again. They are operating out of Buffalo and now also offer options in Chicago. For every shirt sold, $8 is donated to a family in need. Not to a major charity or foundation, but to an actual family or individual in need. To show our support here at Chasing Cinema, when you buy a shirt, we will automatically put you into a drawing to win the next shirt free. That's right. You buy a shirt, $8 goes to help a family or individual in need, and you get a shot to win the next shirt absolutely free from Chasing Cinema. So go to www.26shirts.com and buy a unique Buffalo Sports Design t-shirt, help a great cause, and also get entered to win the next shirt absolutely free. Again, that's 26shirts.com, because you have the ability to help a complete stranger just because it's the right thing to do. www.26shirts.com. Help someone now. Thank you so much for tuning in to ChasingCinema.com's official YouTube channel. I am your host, Jacob Toronto, and make sure to hit that subscribe button on iTunes, so that means every single week our episodes are automatically downloaded to your iPod, your iPhone, your iPad, automatically. You don't have to touch anything, and you never miss an episode of ChasingCinema.com's podcast. Now, like many of you, well, not like, because I actually am an iTunes person, but if you happen to not be one, please feel free to head over to YouTube and hit the subscribe button there, because all of our podcasts are available on YouTube as well. And you can also find our daily video news updates as well as our movie reviews. Today I have a special guest and a good friend that probably comes on here more than he'd like to, because I every time I see him, like, oh, hey, you want to come on? And that is the film editor for the Las Vegas Weekly, film critic Josh Bell. Sir, how are you?
I'm doing fine, and I'm always happy to be here.
Okay, good. I'm glad. At least you have a fun time.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't heard our review of Terminator Genesis and Magic Mike XXL, he was on... well, when you're hearing this, it'll be 3 weeks ago. Go check it out. A very, very fun podcast. I listened to it back myself, and I rarely listen to podcasts myself, but we had a good time. But today's pretty exciting, because me and Josh are going to share with you guys our top 5 favorite films of the year so far. Now, I know a lot of people are asking, why isn't Louis on here? Well, Louis has been really, really busy this year, and he hasn't been able to see many number of films that we're going to be talking about, and he just feels that his list wouldn't really be able to have a good judgment of how much he's not seen. So he'll be on, though, again, very, very soon. We have a couple other surprises coming up for you guys, but for now, it's me and Mr. Josh Bell. Remember, you could follow Josh at SignalBleed on Twitter to find all of his work. You could also go to LasVegasWeekly.com, as well as the great website, JoshBellHatesEverything.com. He always has really, really fun stuff on there. But before we get into our top 5, sir, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. And how are you doing?
I'm doing good. A little bit under the weather. If you guys could hear my voice, I don't have the clear voice I'd like, and sometimes it goes high and low, so please excuse me for the pubescent voice that comes out sometimes. But nonetheless, I'm ready to talk some movies, because I was even telling Josh before we started, every time we do this list, Josh usually gives me a movie that I've not seen and points me in the direction to watch a movie. And last time, I believe we did a top 5. Josh pointed me to Ida and Blue Ruin. And though Ida became, actually won Best Foreign Picture of the Year, and I would have probably seen that movie once it was nominated, I still saw it first because of him, as well as Blue Ruin. So I'm excited to hear his list. I want to see how it turns up to my list. I'm thinking about some of the movies that might be on his, but he hasn't shared. He hasn't told me. I think he probably knows my list because I talk about it all the time, but nonetheless. Mr. Bell, before we get into that, have you watched anything interesting this week that's older?
Anything this week that's older? I don't think so. Sadly, the last thing I watched before talking to you was Joe Dirt 2.
Oh, wonderful. And where?
No, not wonderful. The opposite of wonderful. Really.
I figured. That's funny. I'm reading, every now and then I want to try to get some inspiration. So I'll pull out a Roger Ebert book that I own. And the one that I pulled out this time was Your Movie Sucks, which is a great book. And in that, he reviews Joe Dirt, the first film. And he has a great review on that. He's definitely one of the best. He's amazing. I love reading him. Josh, actually, that made me want, who do you usually read for film criticism? Is there someone that you like to read occasionally, or are you not much of a film critic follower just as much as you read everybody's?
No, I do. I mean, I try to read a good range of things, especially if I'm curious about a movie and seeing different takes on it. So, I was a huge supporter of the website The Dissolve, which sadly just a couple weeks ago shut down. And I contributed to it just one time. I was hoping to write more for them, but unfortunately, it no longer exists. But the critics there, that was definitely my go-to place to check out first and foremost, especially a group of critics who started that website who used to write for the AV Club, Noel Murray and Scott Tobias and Keith Phipps and Tasha Robinson. All of those people, some of my favorite critics, and I'm hoping that they'll all end up in other places so that I'll be able to continue reading their work. So that was probably my favorite source for film reviews over the last couple years since they launched it. But I've always liked Ebert. I mean, I liked watching him on TV when I was a kid. And like you said, I mean, he's got such a huge volume of reviews from his entire career, which lasted 40 plus years.
Definitely.
So pretty much any older movie, whether it's Joe Dirt or some massive classic, if you want to see what Roger Ebert said about it, you can go back, and his website is great for doing that. And some of the critics on his current site, I mean, the one that's run by his widow now, Chaz, they've got some good critics on there as well. Matt Zoller Seitz, and Glenn Kenny, Christy Lemire, who used to do the Ebert TV show. Mm-hmm. So I've been looking at that site more and more, especially since The Dissolve shut down. I've been really trying to find a good all-purpose place to look at reviews, and the Ebert site is a pretty good one.
Yeah, I really like how Ebert does it because there's a lot of different people working, and then you could always go back and read a great Ebert review. I think didn't you watch Do the Right Thing recently? Didn't we talk about this?
I did watch that recently. Yeah, I hadn't seen it before.
Yeah.
About a month or so ago, I watched.
And his Roger Ebert's work, Do the Right Thing, is one of my favorite films of all time. And if you are interested or you want to read a great Ebert review, go read his work, because he did a couple different things to Do the Right Thing, but he was one of the few people that really stood behind that movie, and really, Spike Lee was a big fan of Ebert because of how much he really cared about Do the Right Thing. So that's a really, really great review to read. Now, Josh, I just want to ask you, I know this is really off topic, and I don't know why I brought this up, but do you read a critic because you agree with them, or just because you like their style and how they write in their conversation?
No, I mean, I don't think you have to agree with a critic in order to enjoy reading them. I would say that someone who is consistently opposite of my opinion, or maybe more importantly, who kind of doesn't necessarily view movies the way that I do, even if we might line up sometimes in feeling that a certain movie is good or bad, is not someone that I'm interested in reading. But I mean, there's plenty of poorly written reviews that might agree with me that a movie is good or bad, but that doesn't mean I want to read them. Mm-hmm. I mean, what I'm looking for is hopefully some insight into a movie and why it's good or bad. And for example, Mike D'Angelo, who contributes to Las Vegas Weekly and was also one of the critics on The Dissolve, oftentimes I don't agree with his assessment, but I will still understand where he's coming from and agree with him. Or for example, this week, or I guess it's last week when you run this, but he reviewed Trainwreck, Amy Schumer's film, in Las Vegas Weekly, a film that I enjoyed, and he gave it a mostly negative review. But reading through his review, most of his criticisms I felt were valid. It's just that I kind of viewed the film from a different angle. But what he had to say, I totally understood where he was coming from. So I don't think that's necessarily important. But I do think maybe the critics that I like reading the most, again, especially the Dissolve, would line up. And there were definitely certain times with movies, for example, that are highly acclaimed that I thought were nonsense and that were not worth the acclaim that they were getting. And the Dissolve would be often a place where I would go and see a review of something like Birdman, for example, or more recently, Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, where they would be on my wavelength calling this movie out as not good. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree. And I think you bring up a great point, because that's one of the worst feelings to have, not as a movie critic, but as a film lover, because people always ask me all the time, like, oh, well, do you get nervous if you hate something that everybody loves, or vice versa? And I say, not as a film critic. I don't mind sharing my opinion, but when there's a movie that everyone goes towards, and everyone that I read really enjoys the movie and I don't, that really bothers me, because I feel like I'm missing something. And like I said, not as a critic, because I don't mind sharing my opinion, but I want to just go, what am I missing, or what am I not seeing? So a lot of great critics are able to illustrate that and help us see that point of view. So I've been trying to just find some different, I'm in the same kind of process, I guess. I never really was religious to somewhere like, not religious might be the word, but faithful to somewhere like the Dissolve. I read different people. I definitely read you, sir. I've been reading you for a long, long time.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course, no worries. But it's hard to find someone. I end up always finding myself reading older reviews and movies that aren't current, which probably isn't the best thing, because I should be reading what other people are putting out, but I'm still kind of in that search, and I guess that's why I wanted to bring that up with you. But nonetheless, that interesting, fun conversation about movie critics. I'm trying to think of someone that I do. I like Mark Kermode, who does the radio show over in the UK. He's really, really entertaining.
Yeah.
I rarely agree with him, though. I find myself always kind of having trouble, because sometimes he's just so far off, and I'm just like, wait, what? And then, like you said, that necessarily isn't the deciding factor. I still watch him because I find him entertaining. And there are times where me and Roger Ebert, where I'm just like, I don't understand what he's saying, what he sees in this movie. But a good conversationalist and a good writer is able to kind of get in that, because I think that being able just to talk about the movie is what's really exciting, and the great critics are able to feel like you're having a conversation rather than like lecturing you about a movie, which is really nice as well.
Right, that's true. And I think sometimes people like Mark Kermode, who I'm not super familiar with, but I've seen some of his videos, or Anthony Lane, who writes in The New Yorker, are trying maybe a little too hard to be entertaining and get you to laugh and really have the most creative, clever takedown of something that maybe they lose sight of analysis. And I think that's understandable for someone like Mark Kermode, who's on television or on the radio, and that's really the primary thing that his bosses are hoping to get out of him. But sometimes you read an Anthony Lane review and you think, wow, he spent a lot of time coming up with a bunch of kind of silly
quick
turns
whips,
of phrases and puns and whatever for this, and didn't really tell me anything about this movie.
Yeah, I hear you, and I really agree with you. But anyway, I guess that's been on my mind, because I've been reading that book, and I've been thinking about who I actually read. And so, nonetheless, we're going to get started here.
All right.
And I'm interested, because I'm going to see how me and Josh agree and disagree. Because in Magic Mike, you would think that me and Josh are on the same page, but that's not usually always the case. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is our top 5 favorite films of the year so far. Though I know it is July, so we're kind of over the 6 months mark. I do just want to tell you guys that this podcast was recorded on the July 17th. So I know that in the next week, when you guys hear this, Southpaw and Pixels and I don't remember the other film coming out. I think there's one more. Will be out. And those reasons that those movies aren't on our list yet is because me and Josh have not seen them yet. So
it's highly likely that an Adam Sandler movie would have made my list.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Pixels, man.
Yes.
But I just wanted to give you guys that thing. So if you guys are like, well, why couldn't you mention Southpaw? If Southpaw ends up being as great as some people expect, it's because we recorded it before Southpaw came out. But nonetheless, we're way past the halfway mark anyway, so it's okay. We're making the deadline. Mr. Bell, please give me your number 5. Or do you have anything to say about movies in general this year so far, and how you've been? Let's talk about that first. How do you feel the movies have been this year to you? This halfway through mark, and have you been seeing a lot of great stuff? What's your take on it so far?
Well, I think every year there's great stuff, and actually just a couple days before we sat down to do this recording, I was going through and updating my watch list on Letterboxd with movies from this year that I haven't seen yet, that I want to see, movies that have been well acclaimed or that I was really eager to see. And so there's quite a few on that list that I haven't gotten to yet. So I think every year there's a lot of interesting stuff, and every year people want to declare somehow this year is a good year for film or a bad year for film. I feel like every year is full of good and bad, as always. And if you can't find good movies to see in any given year, then you're not looking hard enough. It's always easy to find bad movies to see, but
that is true.
Yeah, so I mean, people say that sometimes because they look at the Oscars at the end of the year, but the Oscars are ignoring a huge swath of great movies always, and so I don't think that's a really good barometer. So, no, I mean, I think when you asked me, can we do this podcast? Could I come up with 5 great movies that I saw this year to talk about? Absolutely. And I could have come up with more. And one thing I was going to say, because you mentioned how I'm always telling you about new movies for you to check out, and I think my top 5 here is going to be full of movies that you're probably very familiar with. So I did want to quickly mention just below the top 5.
Okay, honorable mentions. I love it.
I don't know. I mean, I have a sort of a running list on Letterboxd of what are my favorites this year, and so literally, right below the top 5. And I won't take too much time, but some movies that you might not be familiar with or people might not be familiar with. The documentary "The Wolf Pack," which is a fascinating sort of document of this family in New York City. These 6 teenage brothers who've been kind of kept away from the world. Their parents are incredibly overprotective, and they don't ever interact with anyone, and their only understanding of the world comes through movies, and they kind of make their own homemade versions of movies, almost like in Be Kind, Rewind, and this documentary follows them as they kind of come out into the world. It's really fascinating. The sci-fi film Predestination, which I think we've talked about before, with Ethan Hawke, which is a really cleverly constructed sci-fi kind of mind bender with a great performance by Sarah Snook. The French film Breathe, directed by the actress Melanie Laurent, who people might remember from Inglourious Basterds, which is a story of 2 teenage girls who have this kind of toxic friendship, and it's very intense but fascinating. And the kind of dark comedy Buzzard, directed by Joel Petrakis, which is I don't even know how to describe it. It's just about this really weird guy and some weird stuff that he does. It's hard to really just to boil this movie down, and I'm trying to do this quickly.
Was that the IMDb synopsis?
Yeah, it might be. If you go to IMDb, they might have a more concise, although perhaps not entirely representative synopsis of this film. But those 4 are films that are more below the radar movies that I did like a lot this year, and that would be kind of my just below the top 5.
Well, thank you for that. I wrote all of those down, and I will do my best to check those out. But now I'm interested because I suspected we were going to go in here and you were going to name these kind of movies that I've not seen. So I'm interested to know what your top 5 is right now. So, sir, those are some honorable mentions. Let's see here. Honorable mentions for this year. I think that there were some movies that I think Ant-Man would probably be my honorable mention right now. I think that movie was a really, really fun experience. Probably one of the most fun movies I've had in theaters this year. Paul Rudd, I just think is awesome. He's really, really great to watch. Also, I really, really enjoyed the SpongeBob movie, Sponge Out of Water. And me and Josh talked about this plenty of times. But I know he wasn't as big a fan as I was, but I also remember that being a really, really fun time. And since that was so early in the year, when movies are mostly cringeworthy, I really, really found myself having a blast in that movie. And so those are going to be the 2 that I'm just going to kind of name off right now for my honorable mentions.
All right. Well, I liked Ant-Man. I can't get behind the SpongeBob.
You will. Well, man, it's just like Batman and Robin. I just need to show it to you. I need to be there. Yeah. All right. So what is your number 5 favorite film of the year so far?
All right. My number 5 pick is Ex Machina, the science fiction film written and directed by Alex Garland. His directorial debut after working as a novelist and a screenwriter with Danny Boyle, especially on Sunshine and 28 Days Later, both of which are intense, fascinating kind of sci-fi genre films, and Ex Machina is right there alongside it. It's certainly the kind of movie you could imagine Danny Boyle having directed, but I think Alex Garland does a great job not only in the writing but also in the direction, the kind of cool, aloof tone of this movie, the weird house that it takes place in, and the acting too, from Oscar Isaac especially as this reclusive technology billionaire, and Alicia Vikander, who's having a great year. I think she's got like 7 more movies lined up this year or something. She's really breaking out this year. But she plays this android, I guess, artificial intelligence named Ava. Domhnall Gleeson, who's really the main star of it, he's fine. He doesn't stand out quite as much. But I mean, it's a fascinating story about technology, about what constitutes intelligence, and also about the relationship between men and women, or what we kind of can imagine as a female entity of some sort. And it's creepy. It's got a really seriously messed up ending, and it's got a great dance scene with Oscar Isaac. So
yes,
I don't know if you've
dance
seen
scene is so good.
Yes.
That is one of my favorite parts about that movie. I also really, really enjoyed this movie. I really, really, I mean, I think Oscar Isaac, like you said, Gleason is good, but Oscar Isaac is great. But Ava, Alicia Vikander is amazing. She totally steals this show in that movie. So we might talk about that movie a little bit more down the line. So right now, I chose a movie that I really, really enjoyed, and I'm interested in seeing what Josh had to say about it, because I remember Josh and me talking about this movie, but it probably isn't one a lot of people would have expected to end up on my list. But like I said earlier, if I like something, I stand by it, and when it's good, and I think about it a lot, it's a movie that I think deserves that praise. Josh, do you have any idea what it is?
Is it SpongeBob?
No, it's not SpongeBob.
I don't know.
This is a movie I know you did like. I just don't think you liked as much as I don't think you liked as much as I did. But my number 5 pick is Unfriended. This movie this horror movie that takes place all on a computer, a Mac, if you will, and a Skype session that I thought was going to be so cheesy that I made fun of the movie up until the time it came out. And I just had a complete blast in this picture. The performances aren't great. The story isn't anything spectacular, but it's the whole setup of the movie that I really, really found myself enjoying. I felt that it was very... In a time when found footage has become more of an annoyance than anything, and seeing movies like The Gallows, which I absolutely loathed, and I think Josh is with me on that. Well, maybe not loathe, but...
that's a terrible movie. I'll support you on that.
Unfriended really kind of surprised me and was very, very just different and fun. And there's been movies, and people said, well, this isn't the first movie to ever capture a computer screen, and they're right. I believe there was a movie with Elijah Wood. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, Open Windows.
Open Windows.
I haven't seen. Yeah.
I haven't seen either. But Unfriended was surprisingly funny and had, it wasn't a movie that actually scared me like, some of the great horror movies that have come out as of late. But it was a movie that I really, really enjoyed and found myself just being entertained by the design of it more than anything. And at times it made me laugh. And there were some really interesting just style choices in that movie that I found myself really enjoying. So surprisingly, I surprised myself. I was like, is this going to be on my top 5? And I just said, you know what? I had fun in this movie. It's a movie that I constantly reference. It's a movie that I get asked about a lot, because a lot of people always ask me about horror movies for some reason. And Unfriended was one that I really did enjoy, like Against the Gallows and things like that. So I found myself really having fun in this picture, and that's what's going to put it on my top 5.
I would go even further than you, because, spoiler, my number 4 pick is Unfriended.
Oh, yes.
I think this is a great movie.
Yes.
And I think, I even think the acting in this movie is quite strong. And I especially reading about what the actors did in order to shoot this movie, that they shot it completely in sequence in a single take, each of them, like a number of times. And each performance is given with the actor not interacting with other actors. They're all sitting alone in a room, interacting with a computer screen.
Yeah.
And I think that's really impressive. Everyone in this movie is that's kind of unknown, young actors who haven't done a whole lot of stuff. And I think they really step up very well. I think the gimmick, if you want to call it that, of the way the movie is constructed is executed almost flawlessly. And so many movies, not even found footage movies necessarily, but any movie that involves computer technology or the way people use computers or the way people communicate with computers and with mobile devices completely botches it. And in many cases, it's simply just for the sake of moving the plot forward or getting the characters to do what you need them to do. But this movie, I feel like, really gets exactly how people use their computers. Currently, it uses real technology. They're not using Smoogle or something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're using Spotify. They're using Skype. They're using all these things that people use at this current moment that teenagers use. And yeah, the story is a bit predictable, but I think in many cases, good horror movies can be predictable. And the question is this executed well? Do the events all follow from each other? And I think they really do. You come away from this movie understanding what it was trying to do and feeling like it accomplished it. And yeah, I too have referenced this movie a number of times. I referenced it in my review of the Scream TV series, and I think I've referenced it a couple other times as well. It's just a really effective, well-made film.
It is. And, you know, it's so funny that you talked about just how it does really replicate how people use the computers, because in my review, I just said in an odd way, it's really, really relatable. It's a movie that I felt like this is something that I would do. This is how I interact. I mean, me and Josh right now are doing this podcast via Skype. I think I said that when we actually reviewed the movie first time too. But I mean, I'm on iTunes. I'm doing things, you know, different. I mean, she's using Spotify, but I'm constantly using my computer. I'm using iMessages and Facebook. And it just felt, in that sense, very relatable. And I also liked how the characters are kind of using this movie as, you know, you aren't really sure who to kind of trust and who to do what. And like Josh said, it is, and what I said as well, I guess, very kind of predictable. But there is one point where I felt the character has this, there's this very, not really twist, but this one moment in the movie I was like, oh man, I feel so betrayed by this character. And I thought it totally worked, and it was a really effective movie.
I agree.
Okay. Number 4 on Josh's Unfriended. Great choice, sir, if I may say so myself.
Thank you.
My number 4 pick was actually already kind of mentioned earlier, and that was the new film from Judd Apatow, Trainwreck, written by and starring Amy Schumer, a movie that just came out. And I really, really enjoyed this movie. I was surprised how much I enjoyed this movie, because seeing it, I felt that it was going to be very, very familiar. And it does, though it does have its very similar, familiar rom-com type situations, I found myself really, really enjoying it. I thought it was very fresh. Amy Schumer is nowhere near as raunchy as she's known for in her stand-up work, but she still brings this very fresh and a little bit spicy style to everything. And the movie did a lot of things that I really, really enjoyed. Also, everyone in this movie, I don't think there was one person in this movie who bothered me or I didn't like as far as a performance. I think me and Josh disagree here. I'm not sure where this movie falls and how much you enjoyed it, but I think John Cena has a great role in this movie. And being a wrestling fan, as we've talked about before as well in this podcast, just kind of seeing him in this very odd, different type of character was very, very fun. Bill Hader is really, really good working with Schumer. Their chemistry is really, really genuine. And Schumer really brings heart to this movie, as well as all of her feistiness and raunchiness. And, you know, there are scenes in this movie where you just kind of don't like Amy, and you aren't a fan of her because of the way she approaches things, the way she says things, but at the same time, we also very much feel for her and kind of have this understanding with her. And and I feel like that is really represented well with her interaction with her sister, who's played by Brie Larson, who also does an incredible job, and their chemistry is really, really true as well. And I think that's why I enjoy the movie so much, just because I felt that it had a lot of truth to it, though there are plenty of moments where I was just like, okay, this is rom-com area. The ending to me was a little bit disappointing because I felt that it went full rom-com, if you will. And let me see here. Oh, and you know, the movie did kind of probably pass 15 minutes too long. I feel like we could have easily cut out 15 minutes, because the movie does have scenes that you feel are going to be referenced again or important and end up never kind of being mentioned again or talked about again, which kind of wastes time. But the rest of the movie, it's just having so much fun and watching her and her dad interact. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Colin Colin Quinn, maybe, I believe it is.
Yeah,
and,
Colin Quinn.
And he's great. He's funny. LeBron James is equally as funny, and he raised some really great points in this movie. Number one is, if just because you're rich, do you always have to pick up the check? And number two, can you imagine just playing a recreational friendly game with basketball with your best friend if he just so happens to be one of the greatest of all time in the game? I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was fun. I thought it was witty. The SNL cameos are really, really great. Vanessa Bayer is hilarious in this movie. Tilda Swinton is hilarious in this movie. I had a great time watching this movie, and I was very surprised by how much how genuine it came off to me.
Yeah, I liked it too, although I don't have it on my list, and I didn't like it as much as you did. But I did enjoy it. As I was saying earlier, reading the negative review from Mike D'Angelo that we ran in the weekly, I felt like he made a lot of valid points, but I still did enjoy the movie. I thought it was very funny, which is really the number one thing. If you're watching a comedy, did you laugh?
Yes.
Did it amuse you? And I did find it funny. I agree with you about the ending. I think the whole structure of the plot really is very familiar rom-com beats. I mean, other than the fact, which is not to be discounted, that they've kind of reversed the genders of the typical characters, and she's the one who's afraid of commitment and is not interested in being with one person and settling down, and he's the one who's ready for a relationship. But once you do that, the way their story plays out is very familiar. Mm-hmm. And I agree it's too long, although it's directed by Judd Apatow. It probably could have been 40 minutes longer. Thankfully, it's not. I think this is the shortest movie he's made since The 40-Year-Old Virgin. I did find it funny. I do like Amy Schumer. I think she's done stuff that's a little more daring and subversive in her stand-up and in her sketch comedy show on Comedy Central. But you're making a big Hollywood movie and trying to appeal to a mainstream audience. You have to kind of streamline things a bit, and I understand that. I was less amused with all the athletes in this movie, and maybe that's just because I'm not a sports fan. So seeing LeBron James or Mari Stoudemire or whoever else, I mean, honestly, if you had just shown me pictures of those guys I would not have known who they were.
Most of the stars in this movie, most of the athletes, I agree with you on, but obviously I'm a big wrestling fan. But I'm not a sports guy either. But I just felt those two cameos in particular worked.
Yeah, well, John Cena, I did like, because he's not playing himself. He's playing a character who actually has distinctive character traits and is an important part of the plot. And I thought he did a good job. He was very funny. But the other guys I probably could have done without. And especially the jokes that relate to their current careers. And I just felt like that was something that was going to make this movie feel very dated very quickly. In fact, my friend who was with me pointed out, which I would not have known, that I guess already Amari Stoudemire doesn't even play for the team that he plays for in the movie. But no, I still liked it, and I'm glad to see Amy Schumer succeeding, because I think she's very smart and funny, and she does, in general, with all the things that she does, something different, and I'd like to see more of that.
Yeah, and I think that one thing you touched on that I kind of forgot, but I did mention in my review, is the way she plays with gender stereotypes in this movie. There's a great scene with Vanessa Bayer talking about calling the police on Bill Hader, which is in the trailer, that he calls her the day after that they have sex the first time. And there are small other moments in the movie that kind of play on this gender stereotype flip. And though it's not like she's coming out and saying, well, this, and having this strong message, it's not a movie that's trying to be super thematic, but at the same time, those little things kind of work because they feel different. Now I forgot the other thing I was going to say.
Was it about wrestling?
No. It should be, but no. But I think that this is the movie that's going to kind of put Amy Schumer in the household and make everyone way more familiar with her. I mean, me and you are familiar with Amy Schumer, but I'm not sure everyone out there is as familiar with Amy Schumer as we are, and I think this is going to make her more of a household name.
Yeah, I think that would be great if that was the case. And hopefully if it is the case, and if this movie does well and she has a lot of other opportunities, that she won't further kind of water down her perspective with whatever mainstream stuff she gets the chance to do.
And I think, what really interests me is that me and Josh both attended the CinemaCon here in Las Vegas earlier this year. And Amy Schumer was in attendance. She won the Breakthrough Performer of the Year award. And she also came out during the Universal Pictures presentation where she showed us this trailer for the movie before it was released. And she talked about how very personal this movie is. And this just kind of left me going, I just want to know what of this is based on reality and how much of this is, and you know, how much is Hollywood. I want to know what interactions are something that are very real to her. As you could tell, kind of her relationship with her father and sister are probably quite real, but there are a lot of other things that leave me, because she literally said, you know, it's based on my dating experiences, and I just want to go, wow, I need to know more about this, because I want to know if John Cena really exists. Well, the character John Cena plays really exists.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I know she's talked about her father, I think, really did suffer from MS, like the father does in the movie. And her sister, I think, actually works with her on some of her stuff.
Some of her work.
Is a writer with her. Yeah.
So, but either way, I found myself really enjoying this movie. I left with a smile on my face. And, you know, surprised as I was, I just had a really good time in it, and especially it being so fresh in my mind, I think it deserves a spot here on my top 5 list. Mr. Bell, what is number 3 on your list thus far?
Number 3 is a movie that you and I have talked about, I think, a few times. Another horror movie called It Follows, which, like Unfriended, has
very interesting
plot structure that is somewhat conventional, especially in its third act, where the characters kind of band together to defeat the evil entity, like you see if you're going against Freddy Krueger or whatever. But the tone of it is very different, and thematically it has some really interesting ideas. The plot, if people aren't familiar with this movie, is that there is essentially a sexually transmitted demon or curse. And the main character of this film has sex with this man she believes is her boyfriend, is someone who cares about her, and discovers that, in fact, he's passed this curse along to her, and this entity is now stalking her very, very slowly. It's this entity that just kind of walks with purpose, like an old-school zombie, maybe, towards her, and is easily escaped in a way, but will never stop. And it really builds this dread over time with something that doesn't necessarily seem all that scary early on. And the idea, too, that it cannot be gotten rid of unless she has sex with someone else. The only way to get rid of it is to curse someone else with it. So, again, there's a lot of familiar horror movie elements here, the relentless entity that is after you, and also, like I said, the third act where she and her friends kind of devise a plan how they are going to be able to defeat this entity, things like that. But the way that it's presented in this kind of slow, methodical way is very unnerving from the start. And it's so unnerving that there's a great scene in this movie where the characters are trying to research this thing and find out where it's come from. And so they go to a school. They're looking for, I think it's what they're looking for, this guy who has infected the main character, and he's given a false name, and they're trying to track him down. So they go to the school and they're asking for some information. And the movie has created such, again, this sense of dread that every moment that they walk in and they go to this office and they stop, and you're expecting at any moment that this entity, and it can look like anyone, it will start walking towards them. And so that whole scene is incredibly suspenseful, and yet nothing happens. They go to the school, they get the information they're looking for, and then they leave. And I guess that's, a spoiler for that scene. But I think that's sort of representative of how well this movie creates tension and does what a horror movie should do, which is freak you out.
That's super interesting, and the reason why I say that is because I've asked Josh a lot about this movie, and that's why we've talked about it such great lengths. However, I had not seen the picture actually until today.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad I didn't spoil anything for you then.
No, yeah. I've been under the weather, and I've had some opportunity to watch some movies. And today I was kind of wondering what I wanted to watch. And I've been watching a lot of old stuff. So I was like, let me watch something new that I've been meaning to see. And It Follows was on the top of my list. And speaking off of the few things I've heard about this movie, is, mostly coming from Josh Bell, I was quite excited, and I definitely wasn't disappointed. I don't think I enjoyed or loved the movie as much as so many do. I mean, I think the movie has a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, and, that just speaks volumes towards it. I really, really enjoyed this movie, particularly because of how effective the soundtrack / score is. I thought it was one of the best scores I've heard in a very, very long time. It was very memorable. It's one that I actually really want to own and have on my iPod. Very, very great. I think the movie is wonderfully shot. Just the way it's handled is very, very well done. And I think that knowing some things going into the movie hindered my experience watching this movie.
Right.
I don't know how, because it wasn't you. I know it wasn't you. But there was, I don't know if I read it or glanced it, but there was the connection, spoiler alert, because I don't want you to go through the same thing if you've not seen this movie yet. The connection between AIDS. And I just remember hearing, or someone had said that, this movie is, kind of about AIDS, if you will.
Right.
Which isn't necessarily true. Because
No. Sorry, go ahead.
Because the director has gone on saying he has no set thing where it comes from or what it's about. But there are a lot of film theories and critics who say it could be AIDS or other sexually transmitted diseases, which I don't necessarily believe. I can understand how that assumption comes about because it is passed along through sex and, it is very, very dangerous. But I think thinking that the entire time or having that in the back of my head kind of bothered me because I was wondering how this movie was going to present that. But that's just interpretation. I thought the movie did play off very, very... I'm sorry, Josh, you wanted to say something when I was saying
what I was just going to say is that I think one of the good things about this movie is that it's not a direct allegory for any one thing.
Yes.
That I think if you went into this movie and after 20 minutes or something figured out, oh, this is clearly about X, and then you could map that real thing onto everything that happens in the movie, I think the movie would cease to be unsettling.
Yes.
But it's not like that, and so you don't necessarily know exactly how it's going to go, and I appreciate that. I mean, you're obviously right. You can interpret this in a lot of different ways, but I think that's a strength, is that you can interpret it in a lot of different ways, and it's not clearly about one particular thing.
Yeah, and after watching that, I was able to figure that out because from what I was told or what I read, I don't remember. I wish I remembered how, so I could go back and be like, "You liar!" That it was like this direct thing where they were going to reveal this, like, "Oh, it's his AIDS," and I was just like, "Well, this is just so strange." But other than that, I mean, you take that aspect out of the movie and you stop trying to really wonder if this is an allegory or if this is the director's political commentary on something, and you just take it as the movie. The movie is very dreadful and very, very creepy. I will say, and the only reason why I compare these two films is just because me and my brother, Tony, who I've talked about many times in this podcast, who really liked It Follows, and I recommended The Babadook to him, and he recommended It Follows to me, and I think since I watched Babadook first, I really, really loved that movie. And I still think I enjoy that movie more than It Follows. But this is definitely a really, really close horror movie. Because I think The Babadook is one of the best horror movies made in a very, very long time. And I think this is definitely a close second. And Unfriended falls in there somewhere. And that's really exciting, too, because no one would expect that.
Exactly.
But It Follows, like I said, to me, the most memorable thing about that movie, beyond the music at least, would be the performance of the female lead, who I don't know the name of off the top.
Micah, I'm not sure you pronounce her name.
Yeah, she has a very difficult name.
Micah Monroe. Yeah,
but
she's excellent. Yeah.
Is very, very good in her role in the sense that she can be really, really frustrating and very confusing. She's not someone that is just very simple or has this, I got to stop this. She goes through a lot of different complexities in the way she's trying to solve the situation, and she does things that make you go, why are you doing this? And why are you not doing this? And I really, really enjoyed that the movie is not just simple, let's defeat this. And though the movie, I will say, didn't strike me as hard as I guess I wanted it to, or made an impactful feeling as much as, something like The Babadook did. I did enjoy this movie, and I think the performance and the score to me were the things that I really took away from the movie. But there is this really, really great impending dread that Josh talked about that right. kind of hurdles this movie, and it is a movie that is being talked about a lot, and if you're wanting to watch this very, very creepy type movie, this is perfect for you, but don't expect your generic, Unfriended, Annabelle type slasher, because it's not in that vein. It does have a lot of classic horror elements in it, but it does it in a very, very fresh and stylistic way.
Yes, I agree.
So I would throw that in my honorable mentions, I guess.
Okay.
Because I did enjoy the movie, but not as much as I would have liked to. But I'm glad you brought that up because I was like, because I was going to bring it up to you after Skype.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was going to be on your list or not, but I'm glad you mentioned that. All right.
All right.
My number 2, or am I on my number 3? I don't remember.
You're on number 3. Right?
I'm on my number 3, yes. Is a movie that Josh already alluded to, and that is Ex Machina. I unfortunately missed the screening of this movie, so I ended up seeing it very late. And I went to downtown Summerlin, Regal Downtown Summerlin, Las Vegas, to watch the movie, which was both a fun experience and a regrettable experience because this is one of those theaters that have these reclining chairs and really, really, they're really, really about comfort here. And that's fine. I personally prefer to sit upright and sit regular like I would in a movie theater. But this was a movie that I did enjoy. However, it was so quiet that I couldn't move my seat when I got uncomfortable because I didn't want to be the guy who's like moving my seat up and down while I was watching it because of how quiet it is. And I think that kind of leads me to one of my favorite aspects about it is that it's one of the quietest thrillers you'll ever see. It's a movie that you're constantly kind of holding your breath to because you're waiting for something to happen. We are building to an explosion of some sort. And when it finally comes, even the explosion is not as loud as you think it is. I mean, and I don't mean that in a thematic sense, but just of how it presents itself. As Josh mentioned, I think, or as I said earlier when Josh was talking about it, I wasn't trying to talk too much about it, but Oscar Isaac is great in this movie. Yes. And the conversation he has with Domhnall Gleeson are really, really great and really intriguing to listen to. And I think that's why I love this movie so much, because it was a science fiction movie that approached science fiction not with space or, spectacular special effects. Though there are really good special effects in the movie, this movie is not focused on them. And it's more about themes and ideas and conversations. And I think that it was a very, very, it's probably one of the smartest movies, if not the smartest movie I've seen this year. It's very, very deep and has a lot of ideas and themes that they're trying to communicate with this movie. As Josh said, what do we defy as being human, and how do we classify artificial intelligence, and the approach of Ava, I absolutely loved, because in most movies you kind of see this artificial intelligence, this robot, and they're played so robotically, which isn't necessarily the wrong way to do this, but I loved how Ava is essentially 99% real, and you could believe that she's a real person, but there's just that little hint of controlled robotics in there that she just the way she moves or once how she completes her sentence, she's not real, but it's so easy to kind of believe it. And I love the style of her body and how she's designed as just visually, and how you could like kind of hear the cogs and everything in there. Or I don't know if they're cogs or whatever you want to call that. I think it's a little bit dated, but how everything sounds. I mean, she sounds like a computer that's just kind of whirring. You have that when you turn on your computer, you hear that kind of fan going, and you hear these little fans and these little things when she's just walking and approaching, and all of that really, really makes this movie work. Also being confined to a small and quiet space in this very odd but beautiful house or lab, if you will, of Oscar Isaac makes the movie even more effective because we are in the middle of the nowhere. And though we do leave this small place a few times and, go near a waterfall and take a hike and things like that, you still feel absolutely kind of lost until the end of the movie where, as Josh said, a very, very, what did you say? Devastating? Was that the word you used?
I don't know what word I did use, but it is devastating.
Yeah, it is devastating. And, yeah. I mean, completely just in awe. But I really, really loved this movie, and I was really bummed I didn't see it in time to review it. I did do a video review, and I actually just talked about this movie recently on our YouTube channel because it just came out on DVD, I believe, on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. So I'm definitely going to go out of my way to pick up this movie. Well, not out of my way, because, I mean, it's not really out of my way, but Amazon isn't very far. I'm definitely going to pick this movie up. I really recommend it to people. It's not the iRobot. It's not that type of movie. It's a very smart, quiet movie that what's great about it is that it's a movie that will cause a lot of conversation. It's a movie that I could not stop talking about. It's a movie that I want to find people who've seen it so I could have a discussion about it, because it kind of leaves that feeling with you. Like you just want to talk about it. You want to get, how you feel about certain characters and how you feel about Oscar Isaac, who is really great in the movie. And very, very interesting of a character, and there's just really and has the best dance scene, I think, in movies in a very, very long time, possibly since Pulp Fiction, if that's the only first dance scene that comes to mind. But great fun in that scene. But otherwise, the rest of the movie is just beautiful. I love that movie.
Yeah, it's an excellent movie. I agree with you on all points. Very good. As I said before, I mean, you already spoke. As I said before, it was lower on my list, but that doesn't mean I liked it less. I enjoyed it very, very much, and I agree. Oscar Isaac is great. Oscar Isaac is an amazing actor.
Yeah, I really do enjoy him. But like I said, I feel like if me and Josh could do. If we had to do a podcast on just one of these movies, I think Ex Machina would be my choice, because I feel like that's a movie that could really take us into an interesting conversation, where our other movies we've mentioned so far we could, but I don't think we could keep going a whole hour or an hour and a half with, like we count Ex Machina. But nonetheless, great movie. Glad it's on both of our lists. We have two. We are sharing two movies on list. I'm very, very happy about that. So now let's get to the nitty gritty, where I think our lists might start deterring. Josh, what was your number 2 pick of the movies so far this year?
All right. My number 2 pick is Far From the Madding Crowd, the adaptation of the classic Thomas Hardy, right? Not to be confused with actor Tom Hardy, but 19th century author Tom Hardy, who people you may have read in school. And I actually have not read this book. I read another Thomas Hardy novel, I think when I was in high school, maybe, The Mayor of Casterbridge, which I remember boring me to death. But this movie is not boring at all. It's fascinating. It's a period. It's a romance, but it's really like this sort of proto-feminist story about this incredibly strong young woman, played by Carey Mulligan, who does a fantastic job in this movie. And she inherits this farm, this estate, I guess you would call it, from her uncle, and decides to run it herself. And she has these various suitors and people who want to kind of tame her, and she is just fiercely independent. But at the same time, she loves with a great amount of passion when she's with these guys. And Mads Mikkelsen, who people probably know as Hannibal Lecter from the Hannibal TV series, plays this kind of earthy, I don't know all these terms for people who work on farms in the 19th century, but he's like a foreman. So he's more of the salt of the earth type. And then we've got Michael Sheen as the rich, landed gentry who is her neighbor, who's very repressed, but really has this depth of feeling for her. And then she ends up falling for this kind of vapid young military officer who clearly is wrong for her. But even when she makes mistakes, she makes them with her whole being. And this is just it's incredibly well shot. It's directed by Thomas Vinterberg, who's a Danish filmmaker, made another movie with Mads Mikkelsen a couple of years ago called The Hunt, that I believe was nominated for a Best Foreign Language Film Oscar. And it's just exactly what you want out of one of these period films. It's sweeping. It's incredibly well acted. It's got emotional passion to it, and it's a great movie.
I unfortunately have not seen this picture.
Okay, well, you should.
I will now. So that at least I got one out of there that I'm like, all right, cool. Now I can go watch this, as well as The Wolfpack and Buzzard. Did this movie come out earlier this year? Is it more recent?
I think it came out. It was up until a week or two ago still playing in Las Vegas. Oh,
so great! I gotta wait till Blu-ray.
and you might not have to wait that long, because it was a smaller kind of platform release. I mean, it opened here later than it opened in other cities, but it got a decent size release. It at one time was playing in probably 3 or 4 theaters locally here. So I would say it probably came out maybe in May or something like that. I'm not sure exactly when the date was, but it wasn't that long ago.
I'll have to look it up and find about it, because I do really enjoy Carey Mulligan as well. Hashtag save Hannibal for all my Hannibal fans out there. Not that I've watched the show, but I know how. I have, out of everything that we post on Facebook and things, one of the most common things we've gotten in the past month are hashtag save Lecters, because we did a video, or save Hannibal, because we did a video about that show being canceled. Nonetheless. So interesting because now in my head, instead of thinking about what I'm going to say about my movie, I'm thinking about what Josh's number one is. And I have a feeling this might be the same. Okay. My number two might be his number one, but at the same time, I might be completely off. My number two is a beautiful movie called Inside Out, a movie from Disney and Pixar that completely blew me away. And I think that I also had a lot of investment going into this project because at the same time, CinemaCon, the filmmakers Pete Docter, Ronnie Del Carmen, and Jonas Rivera came to UNLV, where I also write for. I'm the A&E senior staff writer for them, and I had the opportunity to interview them for the Rebel Yell. And speaking with them, as well as sitting in on this presentation, which they also gave at CinemaCon, but I went to the UNLV one, obviously, to support my fellow Rebs, was very, very insightful, and just kind of learning these guys and hearing where Inside Out came from and seeing the huge long development that they've taken this movie through was very, very insightful. But there was nothing like actually sitting in this movie and experiencing it. I decided not to go to the pre-screening for some reason, and me and my girlfriend went at a 7 o'clock showing, the first showing on a Thursday evening, 3D with a bunch of kids, and it was probably the smartest choice I made because it was a great experience. I'm sure there were kids in the pre-screening as well, but it was a really, really great experience to have the families around us laughing and being entertained by the movie. I was laughing, and it was probably really a great experience for all of them because they heard a 23-year-old man bawling his eyes out. And I really, really enjoyed this movie. It's very deep. It talks about emotion. You know, if you really think about it, our emotions are something that no matter how well we think we have an understanding of, we really, really don't. And this movie really kind of illustrates that, and it teaches us about who we are as ourselves. And though this movie is completely fantasy-based, and how our mind works in this movie makes complete sense, though. Everything in this movie, the way our mind is, the way our memories are, everything just like, wow, that really, really makes sense. If you told me that as a child, I bet you I would have believed it up until now. But I mean, really, really smart. The world that is created, it is the most original movie I think I've seen in a very, very long time. I actually think box office wise, it broke a record as far as an original movie because everything else is an adaptation or sequel of some sort. But this was such a fun movie. It made me laugh a lot. It made me cry a lot. I got frustrated a few times. It really kind of puts you through a roller coaster of emotions, as it is about that. Really, really impactful movie, and really, really insightful as well. Just a truly beautiful and touching movie that has not left my mind since seeing it about a month ago, I think it is now. A great, great picture. One of Disney and Pixar's best movies yet. I haven't really made the list to see if this was my favorite Pixar movie because I've gotten that question a lot as well. But it is definitely up there. I'm a big fan of Ratatouille, which is surprising for some people that it's on top of my list, but this one is definitely at least top 3. It's a great, great picture, probably even higher up than 3, but a great movie that left a very, very strong impact on me.
Well, I'm going to disappoint you and say that this is not my number one pick of the year.
No, really?
It's in fact not anywhere on my list. Not that I didn't like it. I did like it.
I don't remember if we've talked about it.
I'm not sure if we have, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was clever. It was entertaining. It is original. It's got beautiful design, as almost every Pixar movie does. Even a movie like Cars 2, which is super lame, is visually very inventive. I think. Sorry.
Did you cry? Is what I want to know.
No, and this is actually what I was about to say. Is that not that I didn't cry, but that just in general, I think what people love about this movie so much is whether they cried or they didn't cry, that it really reached them emotionally and affected them emotionally in such a strong way. And I've heard this especially from people who have kids, which I know you don't.
No.
Right? Yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe.
He goes, especially I know because you,
actually. All of a sudden I was like, oh, maybe I don't know that. But okay, so yeah, and I don't have kids. So obviously it affected you greatly, and you don't have to be a parent in order to be affected that way. But I think it has a special resonance for some people who have kids, especially if they have kids around the age of the kid in this movie. Mm-hmm. And this movie, it's not that I didn't enjoy it. It's not that I didn't appreciate it or think it was well made. it didn't give me a rush of emotion at any point. And there's one particular moment that people cite a lot, and I don't necessarily want to spell it out.
No, I gotta know.
You could be, well, I mean, it could be construed as a spoiler, I think, for people who haven't seen this movie. But
are we talking about are we talking about a rocket?
Yeah, exactly. And there's a moment where it's a very sad moment. But I think it's meant to be not only is this a sad moment for this particular character, but it's meant to be representative of a certain kind of loss of innocence for people. And I understand that. I think it's an effective moment. But it's not something that really I didn't feel it, I guess, as much as some people have. And I don't mean to be critical. I think this is a very good movie.
No, I hear you.
I think it's definitely one of Pixar's better movies, and especially given the run of recent Pixar movies that have been mediocre, Cars 2, as I mentioned, and Monsters University, and for me, Brave, which I know a lot of people do like, but I thought
I think Brave is mediocre as well. I agree on that.
So I think this is a big improvement over their last several films. At the same time, I just am not quite as on board with it as some people are. But I think it's a good pick, and I think it's one that's going to end up on a lot of lists at the end of the year. I think it has a high chance of winning the Best Animated Feature Oscar, although I know, SpongeBob is going to give it a run for its money. But
it should.
I'm completely in favor of this film. It's not one of my favorites. I will say also, though, that the short film that precedes this movie is horrible.
I didn't like Lava. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I've had this conversation with people who really, really enjoyed that movie. But I think that was probably my least favorite Pixar short that they've ever made.
Yeah, it's incredibly irritating and cloying and simplistic, and every way that Inside Out attempts to be complex about emotions and how they interact. Lava is the opposite of that. I realize it's only 6 minutes long or whatever, but it's insipid, and that damn song drives me crazy. And I actually had seen this short before seeing Inside Out, because when I was at WonderCon back in April, they have a showcase of animated short films that I went to part of, and they showed this movie, which I didn't know was going to air before Inside Out. So I saw it back then, and I thought, what a piece of crap.
So you're just watching.
I was sitting in the theater at the screening for Inside Out, and this starts up, and all of a sudden I was like, oh no, it's this movie again. And I got up and left.
Oh no.
I walked out, and I went to the bathroom, and I thought, okay, how long is this? About 6 minutes long. All right. And I walked back in just as it was ending. That was how much I hated that.
Oh man, I wish, because me and Josh, sometimes we sit together at the movie theaters. It depends on how, the theaters are doing these previews and stuff. And I just wonder how great of a time that would have been, because Josh would have been looking at me at this time that he was speaking about in the movie, and I would have been sobbing like a 7-year-old with a skinned knee, and he probably would have been like, what is this guy doing over here? He's watching Lava, he's walking out. I think it would have been hilarious, because like you said, that scene that didn't really affect you, like I said, put me to pieces. And
well, you're not alone. You're certainly not alone.
Yeah. Well, and that's okay, because I understand, you didn't dislike the movie either, and I know that we're talking about what you didn't like about it, because we know that you do enjoy it. So I know you don't kind of really go about it, because you're not the only one either. I've talked to other people who said it didn't hit them as well. I did talk to a few people who think the movie was a little bit too deep for children and a little bit too dark, which I don't necessarily agree with either. But this movie just completely touched me. And as I believe me and Josh talked about many times, I'm a big sap. It's very easy to get me emotional. As we talked about How to Train Your Dragon 2, and I'm sure. And it's always kids' movies. Kids' movies are the worst. I go into kids' movies, I got to bring tissue, because I know I'm going to end up going to pieces.
Well, those are the movies that I think are most blatantly trying to wring emotions out of you. Yeah. Either that or romantic, weepy, Nicholas Sparks movies.
Yeah, see, those don't work for me, but you put a kids movie in me. I'm a sap.
Yeah, man. Pixar is way better than Nicholas Sparks. I think we can agree on that.
Yes. So this leads us to a very interesting topic, because now I have no idea what Josh Bell's number one pick is. I know what I would like it to be, but I don't think it is. So, Josh Bell, what is your number one choice for best movie of the year so far?
Well, my number one choice, I think, in a way, is tonally the opposite of Inside Out, which is a movie that's so warm emotionally and is about connections and positive feelings. And my number one pick is a movie that's very cynical about human interactions. Is Noah Baumbach's While We're Young, starring Ben Stiller and Naomi Watts and Adam Driver and Amanda Seyfried. Ben Stiller and Naomi Watts play a couple in their 40s who are documentary filmmakers, and they're a little bit stuck in a rut in their lives. And they meet this younger couple played by Adam Driver and Amanda Seyfried, and they become friends with them and become reinvigorated by this friendship with these young people who are so into everything that they do, and they make their own things, and they listen to records, and they also make documentaries. And Ben Stiller becomes sort of a mentor to Adam Driver's character. And it's very funny in its first half or so. Just as these older people befriend these younger people and kind of muddle through, and their friends who are also in their 40s who have kids, which the main characters don't, are kind of looking at them like, what are you doing with your lives? And it was something that I found relatable. And I'm a huge Noah Baumbach fan, and I often relate to his characters who are horrible misanthropes. But then this movie, I mean, is very light in that first half, and it's kind of fish out of water, and it's very entertaining. But it does take a darker, more cynical turn. And you realize these young people who seem like they're so open and sincere are maybe not as open and sincere as they appear to be, or as the older characters want them to be. And you realize that they're complex human beings as well, just like the older people. And just because they're younger doesn't mean that they don't have shades to their characters. And so I think this balances very well those two tones, the funny stuff, which remains funny throughout the film, but also that kind of dark cynicism about the way people interact. And I think those are two things that Noah Baumbach does really well. He's made films that are very funny. His previous film just before this, Frances Ha, with Greta Gerwig, who is his girlfriend and sort of muse currently, I guess, is very light and funny throughout. And before that, he made a film with Ben Stiller called Greenberg, which is unbelievably cynical, but is just one of my favorite movies ever. This is not as good as those two, I would say. I think those were both at or near the top of my top 10 lists for the years that they came out. And I have a feeling this won't remain my number one movie of the year all the way through the year. Or if it does, that means there wasn't really a great movie that I saw later this year. But I did like it a lot. I think if you're on Noah Baumbach's wavelength, you'll enjoy this movie. If you're not, then you won't, because it's really just a distillation of a lot of the same things that he's done in other films. But I always like what he does.
Another movie I've not seen, which now I will go out and see. I must have missed this one as well. I think this was earlier in the year as well, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, it was a little earlier than the year. And I actually I think I was out of town when they screened this for the press. And I went and saw it a week or two later at Downtown Summerlin because, like I said, I'm a big Noah Baumbach fan. And this has gotten kind of mixed reviews compared to some of his other films. But for me, I don't know. I'm just in the tank for the guy. Even a movie like Margot at the Wedding with Nicole Kidman, which got probably some of the worst reviews of his career, I think is a fascinating film. Really, really well done, but incredibly dark and cynical.
Okay, well, that is another movie I will check out, and that is Josh Bell's top 5 favorite films of the year so far. You could read all of, I'm not sure if he reviewed all of them on his website, but you could read some of his reviews and more of everything that he does on joshbellhateseverything.com. You could also read his stuff for the Las Vegas Weekly at lasvegasweekly.com and follow him on Twitter at SignalBleed. And now comes my number one movie, which I don't think is surprising by any sense, and I don't think is shocking by any sense as well. And also, it just so happens to be very surprising or original by any sense, because a lot of lists that have come out has also shared this as the number one movie, and I'm sure even Josh Bell could guess what it is. And it is Mad Max Fury Road, which, Josh, I think we need to talk about, because I know you don't have the same love for this movie like everyone else, though I do know you enjoyed it. This movie completely blew me away. It was the only movie I've seen in the theater twice this year, which I don't necessarily do often either, but this is a movie that I went and saw twice, and I actually would like, I don't know if it's still in theaters, I don't think it is, but I would have liked to see one more time before this movie left theaters, because of how great of an experience it is. I think George, I'm not George, is it George Miller? No.
Yeah, George Miller, the director? Yes.
Yeah, George Miller brings his best Mad Max out in this movie. It is an exciting action movie that is literally wall-to-wall action with extraordinary effects, extraordinary setting. A movie unlike anything you've really seen in the sense of just the visual style and look of the movie. I found myself just totally immersed in this picture, loving every bit of it. And like I said, I went and saw it again. I don't mean a couple weeks later. I went and saw it the following weekend. Really, really enjoyed this movie. And I've talked about this movie countless times, so I'm not going to go down the typical roads that I would go down to. My reviews available on chasingcinema.com. But, what really interests me about this movie is that watching this movie, there was always this kind of, and Dr. Krause, who's a good friend of mine and been on this podcast countless times, I have talked about this, is that there's elements that work in that movie that could work as a silent movie. And what's interesting is that George Miller came out later saying that he wanted the movie to be in black and white and not have any, just the soundtrack, I believe, towards the film. And I believe on the Blu-ray cut, he's going to offer the black and white and silent version, which I think is really exciting because there are definitely elements of silent picture in here. And I get that feeling of just that kind of connection of this movie could work as a silent picture. Not that it's, it feels like it's a silent movie, but it works in the sense that there's not much talking in the movie. There isn't need much talking in the picture. The characters in this movie are exciting and different. The action sequences are very exciting and different. Everything about this movie is exciting and different. It's fun. It's fast paced. It's exhilarating. The characters that we meet are so unique and so out there. Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy are really, really great. They have a great action sequence and a fighting sequence early on in this movie. Just kind of teasing of what the amazing things are to come. Everyone is super good in this movie, and it's a movie that has stuck with me since I've seen it. I've talked about it. It's the first movie that I recommend to everyone that I see because I truly, truly love this movie. And there are a lot of essays and articles out there already about why this movie works so well and people's interpretations of it. But to me, this movie just works because of how great an experience it is. And action movies are a movie that unfortunately are kind of like horror in the sense, well, I guess kind of like anything, but are usually made up, too overdone, and not with enough, I guess I don't know how to word the sentence that was in my mind, but there's something about this movie that feels very different, that feels like it's actually really executed properly and with precision and truly a lot of direction. And I just totally had a blast with this movie. It really, really stuck with me. It's a movie that I constantly think about and I'm constantly talking about. So I really, really enjoyed this movie. And it's a movie that I think will probably stay on my list, though I don't think it'll continue being in the number one spot. But definitely one that I will talk about for a long, long time.
Yeah, I think this movie is wildly overrated. And I did like it. Like you said, I did like it. And so I don't necessarily want to lead some sort of backlash against it because I think it's a good movie. I just think the hyperbole over how good it is amazing to me because I had already, before seeing this movie, read some incredibly positive reviews, and so I had high expectations. But I think if I had seen this movie before reading any reviews, I would have come out thinking that was fun, and not in a million years would I have imagined the level of acclaim that this movie has gotten.
Yeah, I'm surprised how acclaimed it is. Even I am. I know how great of a movie it is, but to see how well people have, just totally presented this movie, it's pretty crazy.
It is. It seems almost literally crazy to me at times. But no, obviously I can't tell someone, oh, well, you didn't actually like this movie. People obviously, something in this movie, and maybe it's like Inside Out, something in this movie spoke to people that it just didn't speak to me. And I think Inside Out is a better movie than this. But, I think it's a well-executed action movie, and it is different, and I did appreciate that. Whether it's the use of practical effects, or the lack of kind of overwritten stories, the way that Charlize Theron's character is presented, and she does a great job in this film, and the character is not the cliched, she's not a damsel in distress, but she's not also a cliche of the kind of badass woman like, say, the Black Widow or something, who I enjoy seeing in Marvel movies, but fits a very specific mold of how a female action hero would look and would act. So I appreciate that about this movie. It is wall-to-wall action. I think it gets a little monotonous. I really do. And especially because there is essentially no plot. And that's right along the lines of the previous Mad Max movies, that plotting is not George Miller's strong suit, or at least it's not this series' strong suit. But at the point in this movie where, I mean, it's basically just a long drive. They escape from this place, and they're trying to get to somewhere else. And at a certain point in I don't know if it's in the middle or maybe it's 3/4 of the way through the film, and Mad Max is like, well, you know what? Let's just go back. And to me, that was the point where I was like, come on. This is really... So literally, the plot of this movie is that they leave, and then they turn around and go back. That's the entire plot of the film. And I think that's great compared to the plot of like a Transformers movie, which you might need a chart to explain and is nevertheless completely moronic. But at the same time, when they got there, I was like, so there's really nothing. We're just going to watch some more explosions. And they're great. Explosions are fantastic. And the cars, the way they're designed, they look amazing. And like I said, the practical effects and some of the colors in this film, there's a scene where they go into kind of like a dust storm or something like that. Yeah. And the color change, which is why I feel like in black and white, I don't know how much I would appreciate seeing this movie in black and white. There's a lot to like about this movie. I think it's absolutely one of the better, if not the best, action movie of the year, but I don't think it's a great movie.
I think, yeah, and and I understand that, and as me and Josh have obviously expressed many times, we understand when we disagree because we, that's what we do. But this movie, like you said, I mean, just really connected with me, and I just felt, even from the littlest things in this movie, I found appreciation, I found enjoyment, and like I said, it's the one movie that has stuck with me mentally, and I think that's one thing that I always kind of look for in a movie is how well and how long does it stay on my mind. Is it a movie that I kind of say, oh, I really enjoyed it, and oh wait, that came out this year, I totally forgot about that movie, into a movie where I'm like, ah man, and constantly talking about it. And this is a movie that I have, and I think that you're right in the sense that the movie is beautiful looking as far as color. Well, I don't know if you said beautiful. That was your word.
No, but it is. But it is.
But I'm really interested in the change to black and white, but not so much as I am as the silent aspect of the movie. But I think that even in black and white, this movie will have very beautiful style because the colors and the way that everything does look, which will definitely lose some of the beauty once it transfers to black and white. But I also think that it'll give the movie a more feeling of desolation and dread, as this movie is supposed to feel, as we are kind of all just living in this what they call wasteland. And I think that maybe that will help tell this story. Well, maybe not help tell the story, but will elevate just the visual style of it. Though I will say, and I agree with Josh, that the color is a really, really great aspect of this movie because this movie is really beautifully shot. But overall, black and white, color, silent or not, I think that I'm going to stick this one out and say that it was definitely one of my favorite movies in a very long time. So I much enjoyed it. That is my top 5 favorite films of the year thus far. Mr. Bell, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to sit and talk with me about these movies.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure.
I hope you guys go check it out. Some of the movies, if you've not heard of them or not seen them. Josh, you just want to go through your quick top 5 again?
Sure. My number 5 was Ex Machina. Number 4, Unfriended. Number 3, It Follows. Number 2, Far From the Madding Crowd. And number 1, While We're Young.
And my number 5 pick was Unfriended. My number 4 was Trainwreck. My number 3 was... What was my number 3? I totally just spaced it.
Was it Ex Machina? Ex
Machina. Number 2, and that movie's not forgettable, so don't think that it is. Number 2 is Inside Out, and number 1 is Mad Max Fury Road. Great time. Halfway through the year, but as we all know, usually the favorites of the year come out more towards this half of the year, which means that we're in, hopefully, for a lot of great movies this upcoming year. Is there anything you're particularly looking forward to?
Probably. I can't. People ask me this, and I can't remember.
I'm with
Crimson Peak. I'm looking forward to Guillermo del Toro's horror movie. I think that looks really creepy, and I like Guillermo del Toro better when he does these smaller, creepy films than when he decides he's going to do gigantic
Pacific Rim
blockbustery kind of things. I thought Pacific Rim was terrible.
I did too.
But I really like Pan's Labyrinth and The Devil's Backbone. And so I'm looking forward to Crimson Peak. And I'm sure I'm looking forward to some other stuff too, but I always forget.
Yeah,
and I don't know, Star Wars. I mean, who's not looking forward to Star Wars? And I doubt that's going to be on my top 10 list, but I think it'll be fun. Hopefully. And I'm sure there's some smaller films. You know, Noah Baumbach has another film coming out this year called Mistress America with Greta Gerwig that's supposed to be more of a straight-up comedy. And like I said, I'm a huge fan of his, so I'm definitely looking forward to that.
All right. Well, we will probably have Josh back 6 months from now. I'm sure he'll be on before that, but we'll be talking probably about our favorite movies once again because me and Josh always have a good time doing these. But sir, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to sit and talk to me for an hour and 20 minutes about movies, which is always fun. You can make sure to read everything Josh writes at joshbellhateseverything.com or lasvegasweekly.com. And of course, you can always follow him on Twitter, which is always really fun because he's always tweeting out stuff. And, all of the work that he does, as well as sometimes he writes, you know, a review in 140 characters, and that's at Signal Bleed. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of ChasingCinema.com's official podcast. Make sure to follow us on everything, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all that fun stuff. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Jacob Toronto. I'm joined by Josh Bell, and please continue chasing cinema.